question. Do you still have the stamp?
I do have the stamp.
You do have the stamp? Okay.
I have it right there in my office.
Okay, I threw something out on our Facebook page that said, only a couple days away from meeting with Hal Blaine. Do you have any questions? And we got some great questions. Some of them I've asked. And of course, someone had to ask, where's this stamp? And tell everyone, first of all, what the stamp says.
The stamp says Hal Blaine Strikes Again.
Right. And he's to stamp this on sheet music, on walls. We'll get to that in a minute. But my reply to this gentleman online was, I laughed, ha 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 ha. I said, not only will I ask the question, but if Hal has the stamp, I'll let him stamp my bald head. So you have to get the stamp.
I don't know if it'll stamp up there. I could certainly try.
Okay.
You may have to get a tattoo if you're going to do something.
Well, I will ask my wife about that one. But so we'll take a break in a moment. You can get the stamp when I have you sign another very special object, and we'll do that, okay? So the stamp, I know a bit of the story, but again, for those who are not old enough to know, and for those who have been under a rock for 50 years, tell them about the stamp, Hal Blaine Strikes Again.
The Hal Blaine Strikes Again stamp evolved from just almost a smudge type of a stamp because I was working at 20th Century Fox Films, big orchestra. There must have been 70, 80, 90 musicians. I forget what the movie was. And a week later they called me and they said, somehow we've lost some of your drums.
That's what you want to hear, right?
My goodness. So we need you, when can you come back in, etc., etc. Now they have librarians that always have your music and everything.
Right.
For some reason, the day that I came in, there was no librarian. There was a stack of sheet music, parts, not sheet music.
Yeah.
Parts, it was this high. And just so the audience understands, when a composer sits down, he has a giant score. And it starts with piano, bass, drums, guitar, saxophone.
There's a
trumpet,
staff
trumpet.
for every instrument in the orchestra.
And if it's 80 instruments, there's 80 staffs that he's writing for.
On each page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when he finishes, it goes to a copyist. And the copyist makes a drum part of all of that. The copyist makes a trumpet part, a saxophone, bass part, whatever. Now, when you have 100 musicians, it's a whole lot of music. And I'm talking about one song. Now, when they have 10 or 12, 15 cues, maybe 20, there's a lot of music there.
Mm-hmm.
And so these people came out with a little, I forget what you call them. Little hand
like
truck.
a cart, like a trolley or a cart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With these stacks of music. And they said, you're going to have to find your own parts. Whoa. Now I'm going through all these parts, and of course I can find my writing where I've made notes, and every once in a while I'd find something. But while I was going through this stuff, I noticed there was a tiny little thing that I noticed on certain trumpet parts. And it was just a nose, almost a cartoon nose, with a tiny nostril. I never knew what that was. And I found out later that that was the great trumpet player, Manny Klein, who was one of the greatest. He used to stamp all of his music in case he ever ran into what I just ran.
Right.
And then he could fan through the music.
There it is.
And spot his nose.
Right.
So I got kind of a smudge. It just said Hal.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, I started stamping every piece of music that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing the first HBO comedy special with Michael Melvoin conducting. It was great. Michael is gone now. And it was the great actor, comedian, and he played guitar. and he sat on like a soft easy chair in his living room.
Right.
What the heck is his name? And he's a great artist. Terrific actor. You've seen him all of your life. You've seen him in movies and television shows. Anyway, that happened. Same thing happened. I got a call from somebody, and they said, engineering or something, we lost the sound, the drum track. Could you come in? I said, sure. Well, now I'm getting double scale to begin with.
Right.
Now I'm coming in, I'm doing it again. Now I'm getting 4 times the scale.
Right.
It was an amazing time.
Yeah, I bet.
But this time I just ran through the music. Psst, psst. Each song or cue that I got to, there was my little stamp.
Right.
And that evolved into Hal Blaine Strikes Again.
That's awesome.
So that was it. It became a very famous, and I've had drummers call me, send me notes from all over the world. Say, we played for the Fifth Dimension this week in the club or whatever, whatever the venue, and the drum part had your name on it. I said, yeah, that's what I used to do.
Well, and
so it went all over the world.
Yeah, I know there's this story, actually, that Frank was reading to me, that Bruce Springsteen was pointing out your stamp in his dressing room at Wembley Arena. So the stamp got around.
You mentioned Bruce. See what happens?
Yeah.
Bruce was a big fan of mine. His drummer, Max Weinberg, a dear friend.
Yeah, great drummer, too.
Great drummer.
And band leader, too. Great band leader as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mentioned Mort Lewis to you.
Mm-hmm.
Mort Lewis, this amazing manager, used to go to France twice a year for vacations with his lovely wife, Trish. And he called me one day and he said, were you ever in Paris? I said, I've been there a few times. And I remember I went one time with Lee Hazelwood.
Mm-hmm.
Lee took me and Tedesco and a few of the crew over to France. And Lee Hazelwood, his standing was like the president of France. He had that magnificent gold C'est la guerre, whatever they call that thing.
Yeah.
The same as like Jerry Lewis. There are very few Americans that have that. And Mort said, I went into the bathroom at the so-and-so restaurant. And he said, I was standing there taking a whiz, and I couldn't believe I saw Hal Blaine Strikes Again. So it's amazing how those things happen.
That's great. And you know what? It's so neat that you still have the stamp. I'm happy. I'm real nostalgic. My wife gets mad at me because she finds stuff that she knows I've had for 45 years or whatever. And she's like, you can't get rid of anything, can you? I just can't do it. And that's nice to hear.
We're all little pack rats.
A bit, yeah. I think we're nostalgic, though. Let me ask you about working with Elvis and being...
Well, before you get into that, I must tell you one of the many great stories. But you mentioned Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes.
They brought me to New York on several occasions. I used to fly in with a big shot, first class, everything beautifully. And of course, their manager I loved him, and he loved me. Greatest guy in the world. And in fact, I surprised him. I flew in for his wedding.
Oh, nice.
They're just going on 40 or 41 years ago that they got married.
Oh, wow.
And I snuck in there. Blew their minds.
Did you bring the stamp?
No, never thought about it. It was probably in my bag. It blew their minds.
That's really cool.
Anyway, the point is, I go to New York and I do the song La-di-da, la-di-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. The boxing song.
The boxer.
Yeah.
Now, Roy Halley, God bless him, one of the great engineers, producers, had a way of walking around a room. When he heard a certain natural echo, put a drum here, or put a microphone here, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when we finished the song, the track of the boxer,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was from a movie, whatever it was from. And I said, and I had carte blanche with so many of my accounts, the people
Mm-hmm.
that I work with. Anything you feel you think you want to do, colors, anything, just do it. We've got tracks for it.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I wanted
Yeah.
to ask how you got that big sound.
That's what exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'm dying to hear this.
So I told Roy Halley, that I would like to do some explosions after those la-di-das. Pow, ba-ba-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Pow, ba-da-da-da-da. It'll go all the way
Yeah.
to the fade ending. So he said, yeah, whatever you want to do. So I said, okay, I'll use a couple of big tom-toms
Mm-hmm.
and have them crash. And we're on the 8th floor at Columbia Records. Sunday, nobody in the building. And the booth is rather a small booth, but when you come out of the booth, it's kind of a half circle down to the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And Roy is doing his thing. You know, he walks around and right in front of the elevator doors, nobody's in the building, nobody's
Mhm.
using anything. Right here, let's put those drums right here. So they had some guys that helped, like grips, whatever,
Right.
and they brought the drums there in my chair and my headset. They have a line going all the way up to the booth. So it was a bit of a walk. So get the picture. I'm sitting
Yeah.
here by myself in front of
An elevator.
an elevator door.
Right.
Elevator doors.
Yeah.
And every time you're, I mean, I'm hitting so hard, the building is shaking. And all of a sudden, in perfect synchronization, as I'm coming down to crash, the door is open, and there's an elderly rent-a-cop type gentleman, security officer,
Oh.
and he thinks he got killed. Now, he's in New York City. He's on the 8th floor of a building where nobody's in the building.
Supposed to be. Yeah.
And when he opens the door, it's like somebody killed him.
Yeah.
And when this went, and I saw the guy, and his eyes were like, and the doors closed, and we never saw him again.
I hope he's okay.
And that's what happened. This old man,
Wow.
he must have been in his 70s,
Yeah.
maybe 80s, who knows? As far as he was concerned, nobody was in the building.
Right.
Why was he hearing these noises?
Right. Interesting.
And so, through the years, some of the questions, how did you get down in the elevator shaft when you did that? Did they have to take you down in cables?
Right.
How did you get that great big set of drums down in the... You wouldn't believe the questions that people ask
Right. Well, here's a question.
about the shaft.
Do you remember? Do you remember what kind of heads were on those drums?
Sure.
Okay.
I always insisted on Remo plastics
Mm-hmm.
with the rough...
The white coated, the
the white
ambassador.
Ambassadors,
Okay.
that's exactly the...
Okay. And I know you explained how fastidious everybody was in the studio about checking for squeaks and all of that, but when it went from going back to the sessions and painting the picture of the different artists coming in and you all as the musicians of the Wrecking Crew getting in the different grooves, how much time was spent getting the actual sounds of how the drums would be recorded? No, that's not the right snare mic, or can you tighten that up, or how much work? And I know putting the room mics with, you know, all of that, but how much work really went into that?
It's one of the great stories. I always knew when it was a new engineer, somebody I didn't know.
Right.
Bones Howe was a great drummer and engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He never touched my drums. He knew exactly what I had. All the great engineers, Thorny, all these guys with Elvis,
Mm-hmm.
they knew my drums. They never, ever had to come and tweak and do this or do that. Never.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great tricks is that if I'm in a studio, usually there are barriers around the drums,
Mm-hmm.
so they can see my head.
Right.
And sometimes an engineer will say, excuse me, drummer, we want to change the snare sound a little bit. Could you tune them up? I'd say, certainly. And I reach in my pocket, and I'd get a pen or pencil or something metal, and I'd click, 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 click.
I knew he was going to say this.
It was all BS.
It was a placebo, basically, right?
Exactly. And I'd hit the drum and say, how's that? And they'd say, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Another great...
And you'd get out your stamp and go, poof, right?
Well, that usually went on the music. But an engineer trying to make a name for himself, he's got a new producer that he hasn't worked with, I haven't worked with. They've hired the wrecking crew.
And he wants to be able to say, I got that sound on Hal's drums.
Exactly. Yeah. He wants to make a name for himself and become a Bones Howe or all these great engineers.
Right.
And they'd come out, and here's a microphone sitting here. And he'd come out, look it over, move it a 16th of an inch. That's it. That's much better. And I knew this guy is full of baloney.
Yeah. Talk about working with Elvis and the spectrum of work you did with Elvis. And one of my questions is, if you don't mind me asking, because I interviewed Bobby Morris, and I know you guys go way back.
Sure.
Did you work with Elvis at a period of time while Bobby was also the band leader by any chance?
No.
Okay. Because you worked with him much earlier then. Oh, okay.
Because Elvis really wanted me to open
the Hilton. And that's where Bobby spent 10 years with him.
Exactly.
Right.
I was with Nancy at Caesars, and Elvis used to come over and hang. He'd come sneaking backstage. He would pick me up from behind, Anyway, the point being, you mentioned Elvis Presley. I told you back in the 50s, I was with Tommy Sands. His manager was Colonel Tom. Colonel Tom and I became good friends for years and years and years. Before Elvis exploded. And Colonel Tom used to come over to the house with Tommy's mother, Grace. Nice lady, passed away recently. His dad had passed away, Tommy's dad, great piano player. And when Elvis was getting out of the Army, I had already established myself pretty good. I forget what year that was. Elvis was in the service. And he was coming home from Germany.
Right.
Coming back to the States from Germany. He either had just married Priscilla or was just getting ready to marry Priscilla. I forget now.
Sorry, what year did you say?
61.
61? Okay. Does that sound about right?
Something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. I had a lot of hit records going already.
Right.
Elvis knew who I was because Buddy Harmon was his drummer. Buddy and I went to Roy Knapp together. We were really good friends. But Buddy was coming to Hollywood, and Hollywood was kind of my territory.
Right.
So there was that professional courtesy. Oh, Hal, you're playing the drums. Well, anyway, I was working at Paramount as an actor. I was on a picture with Yul Brynner and Sal Mineo.
Right.
Who played a pretty good set of drums.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about him. And you've been in Elvis movies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Sal's been in movies, but the difference is you played yourself in movies, and Sal had the pleasure of playing another. Gene didn't play himself in any movies, right? Sal always.
I don't think Sal did the Gene Krupa story.
Right. But the fun thing is you got to play yourself.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sal, what a sweetheart. There's a great story about Sal. We were on a picture out in Barstow. We were on location.
In Barstow, California?
Out in Barstow, on location. And I had all that Egyptian number 14 to look Arabic.
Yeah.
And I was photo doubling for Sal. I was photo doubling and standing in for Yul Brynner.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of the other guys, some of the great actors. I can't think of their names. I got pictures of them. And So there's a scene where Sal goes running up a pathway. It's out in the middle of the desert. No, nothing. Sal goes running up this pathway, and these little squids are exploding next to him, and he knows exactly where to run.
Yeah.
And now they shoot to a P-51 Arabic airplane that's trying to kill him, shooting at him. And of course, each time they cut to Sal, these squids are exploding, and then Sal falls. And when he falls, they cut it. The people come out and they put the blood all over the fake blood, and the whole thing, Sal gets killed in the scene. And the still guy taking the still pictures, somehow it gets in a New York paper. Sal Mineo killed in the desert.
Oh,
and
goodness.
His parents who live there see this.
Devastated, I'm sure.
Oh my God. And they start calling all over. And when Sal hears about it, calls him, he says, "No, Ma, this is the movies. You know, it's fake. It's fake blood. It's not, you know, you'll see the movie." So they understood.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when Sal really got killed,
there's Sal.
Again, every 15 minutes, right? When Sal really did get killed at his apartment garage, the same thing happened. His family, Sal Mineo killed.
Right.
His family said,
they thought it was a movie.
But it was the real. And I thought at the time, how horrible.
Yeah.
That he was just the nicest guy in the world. Terrific guy. No drugs, no nothing. Hard-working, method actor.
Yeah.
Studied at the Actors Studio and all that. I mean, terrific guy. And everybody on the set were great people. These were all people at Paramount. And I knew that, the engineering department, and I had been working in movies well, now I get a call for Elvis Presley, and they said, "Oh, no. He's an actor. You can't use him in music." So it took Colonel Tom for him to come in and say, "We want Hal Blaine on the drums."
Right.
That's it. And of course, you got it.
That's great.
But that happened a couple of times.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was the first movie?
The first movie we actually did was Girls, Girls, Girls. But the second movie, or third movie we did was Blue Hawaii.
Right.
But that came out first.
Yeah.
But Girls, 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 we did Return to Sender. We did on-camera stuff with Elvis.
Right.
Elvis was a great guy. I mean, he was just a terrific guy. You hate to see those things happen.
Right.
And we had, I could tell you stories forever. But he used to come see me in Vegas when I was at Caesars. Yeah. And he used to say, "You're going to be with me across the street." And I didn't want to say anything because I knew that I wouldn't.
Right.
But I'll tell you what happened. I can tell you this.
Okay.
Because it's happened. They're all dead. Colonel Parker calls me. He said, "Elvis is going to be opening at the Hilton or something, whatever it was. Right. And we want you on drums." And I said, "Tom, I'd love to do that, but it's not possible. I'm commuting every day. I'm on an airplane every morning, 7 o'clock, McCarran, going to LAX. A car picks me up, takes me to Columbia, Warner's, whatever, in Hollywood. And I'm working most of the day. At 4:30, I have to be back at the airport, back on the plane, back to McCarran. The car picks me up, back to Nancy's show. We're doing a dinner show. 7 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
Then we're doing a late show, 11 o'clock. So it was tough for me.
Yeah.
And then when I finished the late show, get a couple minutes sleep. I also, at the time, unfortunately, my wife had died. I'm left with a little baby girl. Nancy had a nurse for her, and it was wonderful. Nancy's just the greatest.
Yeah.
Very classy, that whole Sinatra.
Yeah.
They're so classy. So anyway, Tom said, well, we got to have you. Elvis wants you. You're going to be with us. I said, Tom, I'm really sorry. I love you guys. I love Elvis. It's not possible for me the way I'm commuting. I'm going to kill myself. He said, well, what the hell are they paying you? He said, I'll double. I said, that's not the money.
Right. It's the routine and everything, right? And the
You
obligation.
The logistics is impossible.
Right.
So I said, it's not going to be possible. He said, well, I'll talk to you. So then I get a call from Tom Diskin, who was the business manager.
Mm-hmm.
He said, what's this about you can't make it with Elvis for when he's opening? It's going to be a big show. And I said, I know that, Tom, and I'd love to be there. But it's not possible. And he understood. Very nice man. So he said, well, they all wanted you, but if you can't, you can't. Eventually they got good little drummer had a heart attack. I'm sure that created the heart attack too. Because I know Elvis, Burton, all those guys that were with Elvis,
Yeah.
they kowtowed, whatever that word is. They bowed.
Yeah.
Elvis was the king.
Was it Ronnie Tutt?
Ronnie Tutt,
Yeah.
of course. Ronnie, great guy, nice guy.
Yeah.
And Ronnie moved to Nashville, had moved to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So they picked Ronnie because he could put a set together like sort of like
Right. He had a double bass, lots of toms,
Exactly.
and he knew how to play it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he calls me back. Colonel Tom calls me back and he said, "You told Tom Diskin you can't make it. Crying out loud! What the hell is it going to take?" I said, "Tom, try to understand. I got to have some sleep. I'm coming every day, sometimes 7 days a week, for a month now with Nancy and I. Elvis will be there at least a month or more. It's not possible for me to get on an airplane and come home every day." Well, God dog it, he said, "How much are they paying you?" I said, "Nancy's paying me $2,500 a week." Long pause. 2,500. I said, "Yeah, she paid me 10,000 for the month."
And when is this? This is
just
early 70s or
just before Elvis was opening at. I was with Nancy.
right?
I had done the '68 comeback special with Elvis.
Okay.
With Elvis.
Okay. Just to give some perspective
This
to
is
the
maybe
pay. That's why.
69,
Okay. 69, 2,500 a week, and there's all you hear is crickets when you tell them that.
He said 10. He said 25. He said, "There ain't a goddamn drum in the world worth over $100 a week." And I said, "I rest my case, Tom. It's not the goddamn money we're talking about. It's me.
Yeah.
I'm very, very busy. There's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
Even though it's the king. I love him.
Yeah.
I'd do anything for him."
That's
I
a
said-
great story.
I said, "You got Buddy Harmon. You got all the great drummers
Right.
they'd cut their wrists to be with them."
And you carried a philosophy, I think, into that situation that developed. I don't know if it developed before the Wrecking Crew or during the Wrecking Crew, but a lot of people perceived R&R as rock and roll. You had a different term for that acronym.
That's right. R&R to me was reliability, responsibility.
Right, and that's what made you all
That
professionals.
was part of it. And there was no drugs, there was no booze with me.
Right.
You know, we all took a puff of a cigarette once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I hated it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't me. I just, not a drinker, not a regular cigarette. Sure, I loved smoking. I used to smoke a lot.
Yeah.
But in the studios, as most people know, you light a cigarette, you put it down, you play for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
By the time you're going back to the cigarettes, time for to light another one.
Yeah. It's burned down. Yeah.
So anyway, they understood. They absolutely understood. Elvis understood completely.
Right.
Elvis called me, said, "I love you, and I understand, and we're not going to try and hurt you in any way, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera." So I said, "Listen, I'll see you one of these days, anytime, anywhere. And hopefully it'll be in LA and maybe one of your premieres or something.
Yeah.
We did, on camera, we did a number of things with Elvis that we had originally pre-recorded, of course. You always pre-record a song with a singer, actor, whatever.
Yeah.
Because they're going to shoot the same scene over.
Right. All the different angles.
You know, maybe long shot, master shot, little bit close up, 3/4, half, waist up shot,
Yeah. The soundtrack's got to be
side
tight.
shot.
Yeah.
It all has to match.
Yeah.
I've actually done movies where they didn't pre-record.
Is that right?
And the actors were singing, I forget his name, Troy Donahue.
Uh-huh.
They did a big movie down here in the desert. And they were in a balloon or something, and they all sang all different keys. It was terrible.
Crazy.
And we did it for Warner Brothers, and we went in. Billy Strange was arranging, and we had the wrecking crew at Warner's, Dan Carlin, all the great engineers, everybody. And the producer of the movie was a great actor, big fat guy that played a detective on television.
He was in the movie, the TV show Cannon. What was Robert no, not Robert
Conrad.
His last name was Conrad. Yeah, black hair, mustache, real big, right? I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name.
Bill or Bob Conrad. Robert was the younger
Robert's
guy.
the other one. Yeah.
Good-looking young guy.
Yeah. Oh, my wife will know.
Well, anyway,
She'll tell me and I'll put the name here.
Mr. Conrad came in there, and it was an 8 o'clock downbeat or 9 o'clock downbeat in the morning. We should have been finished by 3, 4 in the afternoon. And Mr. Conrad was there with his angels, the people with the money. And we had just wonderful coffee and donuts, and we're going to have a great movie here. Wish I knew the name of the movie. It was a Z movie. It was
Z
a terrible movie. It really was. That day, that entire day, they were trying to match us to these vocals. Nothing was right.
Just wouldn't work.
Nothing was
because it wasn't pre-recorded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was awful.
Wow.
And some of the actresses are trying to sing and they're not singers.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that night, about 8:30 at night, we're still there. We're in double, triple overtime, premium time.
Right.
And it's costing them more than the movie cost. And the next morning, our call back was 8 in the morning. We got to finish this movie. We come back the next morning at 8 in the morning. We jump on our seats, and we're trying to still do this. And Mr. Conrad comes in with all of his angels again, wanting to hear the playbacks.
Right.
They said they're still recording. What? The music cost twice as much as the whole movie cost.
Wow.
The poor guy almost had a heart attack. These people that had put up all this money.
Yeah.
So those things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
You have all kinds of experiences
Right.
in the studios.
Yeah. I have 2 last questions for you.
Sure.
One's a question, and the other one is something special that we'd like you to sign on camera.
Okay.
The question is, tell us about the foundation that you're tied to, the Les Paul organization.
Well, Les Paul, of course, everyone knows he holds or held something like 2,000 patents on guitar.
Innovation, really.
Innovations, I guess, yes. Sounds, the things you never dreamt of. He really changed the sound of the electric guitar.
Right, and music, I
Started
think,
out with Gibson, I think, or Fender, and vice versa, and went back the other way. Mary Ford was the same thing. She had beautiful instruments, and they did. Excuse me. Where do I get hiccups all of a sudden?
From Les Paul.
I gotta tell you, there's a man by the name of Brad Smith.
Okay.
He happens to be the brother of the great drummer Chad Smith.
Oh, okay.
Chad, Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
and a lot of groups and so forth. Great drummer, good friend.
Awesome.
They've been down here filming me, and Brad was the original publisher of my book. He was with the Mix Books in California.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the people that asked me, they said, you have so much to tell, you should write a book. Wrote a book. Their editor was a guy that they called Mr. Bonsai.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Bonsai used to do a lunching with Bonsai. They had a magazine, Mix Magazine was one of the great technical
Right.
magazines.
Yeah, for studio.
For studios. And so we have been friends forever. In fact, maybe a call to Brad can get you the book that you were asking about.
Okay.
Because they're now handling it again.
Oh, good.
Brad is one of the VIPs with Hal Leonard Publishing Corporation.
And what is the name of the book, Hal?
The book is Hal Blaine and the Wrecking Crew.
Okay.
Yeah, it's simple enough.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So Brad called me. He knew that I had spent so much time. I was at Capitol Records the day the studios opened.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my little clock that they gave me as a souvenir
Oh, wow.
with a picture of the Capitol Tower,
Right.
which was made to look like records.
Record stacked. Yeah.
It's an amazing time. And Les, of course, was one of the artists. And anyway, the point is that Brad called me. He is now in Wisconsin with the Hal Leonard Corporation.
Oh, okay.
They come out here on occasion, and they're here for the NAMM shows.
Mm-hmm. Every January. And...
Right, twice a year here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's Les Paul's 90th or 91st, one of his big birthdays
Yeah.
would have been. And they're having Les Paul days in the city called Waukesha, where Les kind of grew up and
Mm-hmm.
started all of his nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And they just wanted me on the advisory board for whatever expertise I might have
Right.
when they have conventions, and maybe I can speak to newcomers, etc.,
Right.
about the fact I don't know Les Paul. He was a wonderful man, and of course he spent all this time in New York playing in a club right to the time that he passed away, I guess.
Right.
And so that's how that came about.
Got
So I said, I'm happy to help, because generally 80 or 90% of any monies involved
Mm-hmm.
goes to their favorite charity.
Okay.
So whatever Les's charity was,
Right.
or the city of Waukesha, I forget what they called Les. They had a name for him. He was the something of Waukesha. I forget what it was. But he was a sweetheart of a guy.
That's us.
And what a player, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he really, to me, was absolutely the father
Yeah.
of rock and roll, because if, Hendrix and all these people and all of their nonsense, playing with their teeth and everything else. I remember being on stage with The Who,
Mm-hmm.
and Keith Moon
Mm-hmm.
used to do interviews. I want to grow up to be just like Hal Blaine. Keith Moon they wrecked instruments, they did craziness, because that's what it called for. That's why they became lunatics on stage. Off stage, they were not lunatics.
Right. Yeah.
Keith and I both had antique Rolls Royces,
Mm-hmm.
magnificent. You'll see a picture of
Mm-hmm.
one out here that you might want to take a picture of. Beautiful, and he had a rather old one.
I have something very
Really
special here.
Okay.
Some of the folks that watch the show know about this. Some of them don't. This is a very special drum throne. I'm going to
I
pick
see
it up
it.
so that
Beautiful.
the camera can see. And you might want to make sure this is visible. And what we have is, this is a Carmichael throne. It's a very special drum throne. It's got this
Beautiful
channel through it so that it alleviates pressure on your lower back, your lower spine, and all that. But the other thing that makes this so special is all the wonderful signatures. We have Don Felder from the Eagles, Alice Cooper, his wife Cheryl, great drummers like Glenn Sobel, Steve Riley, Bobby Morris, your old partner in crime. And I'd love for you to sign this drum throne as well, because later this year, December of 2013, this is going to get auctioned off for Alice Cooper's foundation, the Solid Rock Foundation, which benefits a teen center that he has where kids can go to get tutored after school. They can get free dance lessons, music lessons, martial arts. And we're going to auction this off and donate all of the proceeds to Alice and Cheryl's foundation.
That's
so
great.
If you don't mind, I'd love for you to put your Hal Blaine on there wherever you'd like.
Hopefully this is working.
Yeah, we haven't tested it. Oh, it works fine.
That's it.
That's great. Beautiful.
Good enough.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to ask one more favor. If and I'll unplug your mic and we'll cut the camera for just a second so you can do this. If you'd grab that stamp and see if you can stamp my head so I can keep my promise.
Let me go get it.
Okay. So we talked earlier about a message I put on Drum Talk TV's Facebook page saying, hey, we're only a couple days away from interviewing Hal Blaine. Anybody got some questions? I've asked a lot of those questions, maybe even all of them. And one of the questions that a gentleman asked, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it was, but he said, ask Hal if he still has the stamp. Hal Blaine Strikes Again. So I replied personally to that post, and I laughed.
What?
Yep, I said, haha, he does have it. And I said, haha, I tell you what, I won't only ask the question, but if Hal has it, I'll have him stamp my bald head. So let's give it a whack and see if it works.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, let's do it.
I doubt it.
And I've been hitting, I'm married. I've been hitting the head pretty hard.
It has to be kind of flat.
Well, there you go.
Oh, man.
Wherever you see fit, just go ahead and whack it on there.
I'll sure try. But it's
and you can roll it if you need to. That's all right.
Smudge is so bad. Oh, I don't think it's very good.
Do we got it?
You can see it, but let me get it close up.
Not quite.
I'm going to tell my wife that you and I went out and got matching tattoos, except yours says Dan Schinder Strikes Again. Here, I'll move a little closer to the camera. Hopefully you can all see this somewhat. We'll post that picture that Frankie just took, but there you go. Thank you so much for letting us take up so much of your time here in your home. I really appreciate it. It means so much to me and our audience.
It's really great fun for me to talk to drummers. In this case, not only yourself, but
thank you, the audience,
all the drummers that are out there listening and hopefully paying attention.
Yeah, and I hope that you all understand. I mean, we're talking with a gentleman here who has had just such an amazing career, and that's why there's so many stories and there's so much to learn from those stories. If you watch this over and over a few times, just like reading a great book, you'll always learn something new from it. And as you all know, whether you're new to the show or if you've watched it over and over, you probably know that I always say in the philosophy of Drum Talk TV is that not all lessons happen from behind the practice pad or the drum kit. Lessons, great lessons, can be learned by having an open mind and listening to great discussions to hear the perspectives of other people's unique experience. And you have had a few.
You can cut
Thanks
that out,
for joining
course.
us, everybody. Dan Schinder here with Hal Blaine on Drum Talk TV.